allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We bow our heads, please. Dear God, thank you for bringing us together tonight. We ask that you bless this city of ours, and we ask that you give this council guidance, wisdom to do the right things for this city. And this we pray, amen. Amen.
Hold on just a minute, please. Technical difficulties. So you were thinking the same thing?
Notice that by the pool. What's that? We might throw it in our new cup.
Okay, Mayor, we're good.
Okay, could we have roll call, please?
Present.
Present. Present. We have one item to add on our agenda. Item under 8, number D, should also be added to 10, and we'll put it under C. Everybody understand that?
Just quickly,
On the
there's item 8D is our adoption of the investment policy for the city. That also should be done, the resolution is in the packet, should be done for the redevelopment agency under item 10.
So
And
we'll
that
add-
item, so it'll be as item C
We'll add number
on your
C.
agenda.
It was in code, you couldn't understand?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay, number 5, communication from staff.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to give you an update on where we're at with 1414 Main Street. That's the building that has burned down and is currently in a state of disrepair. We have received the asbestos report. There is asbestos within the linoleum in the flooring itself, so we need to get an APC, Air Pollution Control District, permit from them. They've already reviewed the report and have agreed to issue a permit. We have a contractor. Currently, the homeowner, or the property owner, excuse me, is balking on the price. So we've made contact with them. If they don't step to the plate, basically tomorrow, we are going to institute our proceedings to abate the property and to get it cleaned up and put a tax lien on them. So just want to keep you updated on that process, as abatements will come before you and you'll know about them. So just so you can be aware in case anybody asks you.
Is that the normal process? Because I know it had been a long time since that property's been in that kind of shape. Is that?
Yeah, on properties like that, you have to have a report done, especially on the older buildings, to see if there is asbestos within there. You can't touch the building or clean up the site until Air Pollution Control District grants you a permit. And you also need a demolition permit from the building department. And it's kind of in a circle once again. They won't issue you a demo permit until Air Pollution Control District signs off on it. And they take time to review it and to prepare the report and everything. So that's why the delays have been there. But staff is moving forward with abatement on the process to clean up our downtown.
What's an expected time frame? Just, I know we have to give the property owner sufficient time for a response, but what is that time frame?
Within 30 to 45 days, we should have that site cleaned up.
Timely report, you must have been reading our minds.
Yes.
That was on our list to ask, too.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other communications from staff? Item 6, items from the public, non-agenda items. While the City Council welcomes and encourages participation in the meetings, it'd be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes so that everyone may be heard. Matters under the jurisdiction of the Council and not on the posted agenda may be addressed by the general public at this time. However, general California law prohibits the council from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the city council. Any non-agenda items? Okay, items from the public. Are you sure?
Jumping the gun a little.
Items from the public, agenda items. Any member of the audience desiring to address the council on a matter on the agenda, please raise your hand or step to the podium at the time the item is announced by the mayor, in order that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak. Any person addressing the council will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes unless the mayor grants a longer period of time. Agenda items? Oh, you're on public, okay. Number 7, public hearings. Item A, introduce ordinance number 2003, an ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 1 of the Newman Municipal Code, speed limits.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. The police department has to conduct traffic surveys every 5 years, and we have done such on the 3 other streets that we currently have as part of our municipal code. We want to add Section D, which will cover Canal School, which we took into the city, and we have done a speed survey on that road, and 45 miles an hour currently is what we're looking at proposing to the council to change that to. Currently is 55. We feel that is an unsafe speed for that particular area due to the new housing structures that have gone over in that area. So with that, we were looking at amending this to add to Title 10, Chapter 3, in Section 1, subsection D, which would be the new section, and to read, the City Council has deemed, upon the basis of a traffic survey, that a prima facie speed limit of 45 miles an hour for that portion of Canal School Road from Hills Ferry Road to the southerly city limits is found to be most appropriate to facilitate the orderly movement of traffic and is reasonably and safe. This is the same wording that you'll find on the other 3 that are currently in our code, except for I say that it's on by the basis of a traffic engineer. That wording isn't really necessary for this to pass, but I just want to make you aware of that portion of it. And looking at making this from the southerly limits in case for future growth, that we're able to move those city limits without having to come back to you folks on that. So
I guess my question would be, what are you considering those southerly limits? Because at one point on Canal, it becomes Merced County. So are we talking south of Inyo or right at Inyo?
right now we're looking at bringing it right to Inyo at this point, because that's where our city limits currently go. But as you know, we have the industrial park, and we have the enforcement portion of that industrial park, so that we may extend out to that portion, which would be into the Merced County area. So this would just alleviate any kind of problems at that point.
In other words, when that road is put in and,
Yes.
and it reaches Canal School, then we can move it.
And this would already be
Be in place.
Yeah, correct.
And we'll have the sign sort of like when you're coming in on Hills Ferry, coming in into town, the sign before, obviously, that'll say reduce speed ahead.
Yes.
Okay. Way into the Merced County.
The posting is the easiest part, yes.
Right.
That's not a problem. We're currently doing that with Stanislaus County.
Any other questions for Mike? Direction?
It's a public hearing, correct?
Yes.
We'll open up the public hearing. Any public comments? We'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we introduce ordinance number 03, next to number, amending Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 1 of the Newman Municipal Code, speed limits.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Item 8, consent calendar. Approval of warrants. Number B, approval of minutes of the January 14th, 2003 regular meeting. Number C, adopt resolution number 2003, next to number, a resolution receiving and accepting the City of Newman's general financial statement and audit for the fiscal year June 30th, 2002. Item D, adopt resolution authorizing the approval of the statement of investment policy for the City of Newman. Direction?
I think I do want to pull warrant item C. To discuss the general fund audits, general purpose financial audits.
Okay. We have a motion for
For the rest of the warrant items, so moved.
second.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Tim?
Just then specifically, I wanted to ask a question about some reconciliation of what I viewed as an over expenditure for capital projects. And I'm referring to the general purpose financial statements dated June 30th, 2002. And let's go to page 4. And I just want to gain an understanding because I'm thinking these amount of funds that I see here, which is just over 400,000, 444,000, is in response to the streetscape project. And I wanted to know if that was the area of funding where I saw the over expenditure. Is that in reference to streetscaping at all? I wanted to presume that it was, Margaret.
Without having the actual detail in front of me, that does include the streetscape, Inyo Avenue, and our housing rehab projects,
Okay.
which isn't city funds. It's special revenue that's designated strictly for that. And we spent about 200,000 last year in rehab.
Okay, and for the overage, we made up that balance out of our general fund.
Where were you referring to overage?
Well, I'm looking at the excess of revenue and other sources. Perhaps I'm misreading it. And it's the...
Oh, I see, yeah. It's just sometimes we will not receive the money until next year. For the
Okay.
streetscape, I have an outstanding bill right now.
Right, so we're covering
Yes.
those funds right
The
now.
same applies to housing rehab. We do the work and then we get reimbursed by the state.
And we're anticipating getting reimbursed. That's why I
Absolutely.
asked that
Those
question.
are obligated funds.
See why I bring that
Yeah,
question
yeah.
up? We're hoping the state
Yes.
is definitely going to obligate themselves to pay us for
Yes.
that 444,000.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, can we have some direction on consent calendar item C?
So moved that we approve.
Second.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Regular business. 9A, approve request from Sir Optimus Club of Augustine Newman to paint Louis J. Newman Memorial Building.
Mayor, City Council, I'm Pat Maizetti, President of Sir Optimus International of Augustine Newman. As you know, you've just recently put a new roof on this particular building, and we are one of 51 clubs in our region. Our region runs from San Francisco to Bakersfield, down to San Luis Obispo, back up to Angels Camp. And on February the 8th, which is a Saturday, each one of the 51 clubs are going to be doing a service project within their community, either reading to children in their libraries or providing some type of service for their senior citizens. And our club would like to do the interior painting of this building, especially since you have a new roof. And we are asking for volunteers to come and help us paint. We found that as we went over with Ernie and with Doug, there really isn't a lot of walls, so we're anticipating being able to do this little project quite quickly. We're anticipating maybe only 3 gallons of paint being the necessity, which we plan on doing, you know, around the inside of the hall. Just has like 1.5 feet that needs to be painted, and the bathrooms and the kitchen area. So we're looking forward to doing a very nice job in doing this painting. I have with me this evening our insurance coverage that will cover that, so I have a copy that I'll leave with you. We would kind of like the council, and like I say, with Doug and I, we've kind of looked at a couple different paint samples that we will be getting the paint here from one of the local businesses. But we'd kind of like for you to kind of let us know which one of these you like.
Are you referring to the ones that are marked here?
Yes, first and
Oh, yeah.
second are kind of our choices. Now, if you don't like those, I have a few more that I have brought along with me, but I think they're a little either too dark or too light. So if those don't suit you, I have some other choices. While you're looking at those, while I was there with Doug and Ernie, I also was looking at the ceiling tiles. The ceiling tiles are in real bad shape. A lot of them are absolutely disintegrating and getting ready to fall down. I know that this is not on your agenda, and I briefly discussed this with our club. I can ask later on to put it back on another agenda and come back before you. But if we can kind of get a feeling if you as a council would be interested, I would like to see that our club be a catalyst to see if we can go out and talk to other organizations. We don't have the money, but for about $2,400, we figure that you can put a whole new ceiling in that building. The tiles will run about $2.95 a piece for the panels. And we would be willing to go out to other organizations to see if we could raise money for you to put in new tiles throughout the dining room area. We would be willing to do that as a lead agency for you. I find that if you get clubs involved, we can do a lot of things for your community that will save you money. With the cutbacks that I see you're going to be having as a city, you're going to be relying on more and more organizations like ours to do different projects for you. And
I think it's great.
I don't know how you feel about that, but we would be willing to do that and send our club members out to see if we can't raise the money. If your employees could do the actual work of putting those tiles in. Just happen to have gone out and done a little survey for you. And here are some various tiles that you might be interested in putting in.
You're prepared, Pat. That's good.
I like this. We had a volunteerism meeting in that particular building, and there wasn't a whole lot of participation necessarily, but for someone like yourself and your organization to step forward and help us out in the manner that you're proposing is really appreciated, because like you say, oftentimes when you're already organized in that fashion, you're a group of volunteers anyway.
Correct.
And you're pushing that forward, and you kind of have a sense of gaining momentum much quicker. I don't think we would want to deter you at all with any labor that you might want to put into helping us out.
Well, you have to realize we're like 22 active members, but I'm probably the youngest. Not quite the youngest. Maybe Debbie is the youngest. But you can tell that we are in the older group, but I think we'll have about 5 or 6 of our members being able to volunteer, and I have called a couple of the clubs. It's not going to take us long to put up 3 gallons of paint. And if any of you gentlemen are free on the 8th, we'll take your bodies. We'll work you.
We'll put that on
Do
our
you
calendar.
have any preference on the colors?
Both of them are relatively light. The chalk color looks as an offset of white, and the other one was...
Well, we kind of like
Sort of
this
a
one
greenish
because
color.
if you go into the bathrooms, they're kind of a pale green. We wanted to make sure we had something that would probably cover in one coat. And that's what Doug and I kind of thought about, maybe this. We wanted to paint everything the same color for you because that hall apparently is used a lot for weddings and that sort of thing, and they do use Scotch tape and masking tape. This way we thought that they could touch up if there
For
was any
touch-ups.
problems. Sure.
I don't have a problem with your first choice.
Yeah, either paint, either
Sounds
color.
good to me. Do
Yeah,
you have any
excellent.
questions of anything that maybe Debbie and I could answer for you?
We just applaud your enthusiasm and thank you very much.
We're looking forward to it, and I think you'll be real pleased when we get it all done for you.
And just,
May-
Pat, real quick, if we could at some point in the immediate future hear back on those ceiling tiles, because as you say and as we all know, that hall is used a lot.
Well, if you're
Yeah.
interested in doing this, I'll go back to my club, get approval for us to go out, and if we can raise the money for you, even, if a person that uses that hall wants to come in and give you $3 for one tile, I mean, we've got $3 a head. And that's the way I think you get things done. But I'm hoping to
Sure.
go out and maybe raise all of it for you right away, and so we can get that,
That'd be great.
as soon as we get it painted, then we could get a new tile roof in, you'd have it made. Thank you for your help. So if this is all right with you, we'll go ahead.
Yes.
Do I leave our
we need to vote on
certificate
it?
of insurance?
You can leave it with Cleve. Pat, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat.
I move that we approve the request from the Seroptimus Club of Gustine and Newman to paint the Louis J. Newman Memorial Building.
You have a second?
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. 9B, adopt resolution number 2002. Next to number, a resolution urging the California legislature to reject the governor's proposed shift of local VLF revenues to honor their 1998 commitment to restore the VLF.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And any of you, I know that a lot of you have been updated on this. I just want to run through a couple of things. You have my report, and I've tried to explain potential effects that the governor's proposal would have on the city of Newman. As you know, the current proposal is that to attempt to take the VLF funds that we should, or not give us the backfill that we should be getting for the second half of the current fiscal year that we are in. That amount would amount to, one estimate that we received would be about $140,000 for the remainder of this year. So out of our current budget, we would have to cut $140,000. The projection for next year is that we would get neither the first half or the second half of that backfill that has been promised to us from the state, which would amount to $298,000 next fiscal year. And some of the talk is that this may be a continuing thing, that would be completely eliminated, and that portion of the VLF that we've historically received and actually were designated to receive by a constitutional amendment that was passed would be eliminated. So you can see that that alone has a drastic effect. Let me run through. You have in your council packets some charts that I put up, and these were done very quickly. I have to admit that there was not a lot of time spent on these, but it gives you a little bit of an idea of to help you understand maybe the impact that these would have on us. This first chart shows our general fund revenues that we receive according to categories. And I believe in your packet you have a chart that shows you what those categories are. The taxes and assessments, the first one, that is simply our property taxes and sales taxes. Those are the only things that are in that category. The vehicle license fees, Margaret, help me out if I recall, are in the other contributions that is shown as 25%. That's the 25% category. User fees, part of the reason that one is as high as it is, and one point I want to bring out on that one is that includes our revenue that we receive for our refuse contract, which is $500,000. And that's what I wanted to point out on this next slide that I made. And this is very, I call it discretionary and non-discretionary. It's probably not the correct terms. But the point I wanted to make is the $943,000 is the $500,000 refuse contract, because we really can't do anything with that unless we want to cut garbage services. If we cut that, it also cuts the revenue. Okay? It also includes our building contract with Precision Inspection. Again, if we cut back on that, it cuts the revenue. So the reason I put those as non-discretionary funds is it doesn't do us any good. It doesn't help us one way or the other to do anything with those two funds. So you can see that cuts out. So the cuts that amount down of revenue that we're receiving to go towards expenditures, general fund expenditures. It cuts it down really to the 2.1 million mark rather than the 3.1 million mark that is in our budget. Next, moving just quickly over to expenditures. This shows by department, and not completely by department because I combined under general government includes all of our finance, city manager's office, city council, planning. I did pull building out separate solely because that is a separate contract for that, and I wanted to focus on that. Public works includes, as I pulled out refuse, but public works includes parks, storm drain, streets, and similar items there. So I combined a few of those just for ease of showing this, but this shows where our general fund expenditures are. This next slide that I put together, I pulled out those two that I mentioned before, the building function contract and the refuse function contract, because again, for those reasons that I mentioned, to do anything with those is really not going to do us any good one way or the other. So taking that out, you can see how the different departments are made up and where those expenditures go. Under this, you can see that of that 2.1 million that I proposed in the other, that was that discretionary funding that could go, these are the services that 2.1 million go towards. And you can see that over half of that it goes to our public safety, to police. Okay, and then the other departments you can see there. So those are the four charts that I put together to basically show, just to give you some ideas of looking at this chart alone, if we were to have to cut even just $150,000 worth of revenue out of that, give you an idea of what kind of impact that may have. And if next year, if that becomes almost $300,000, again, give you some ideas of what an enormous task it will be to try to find the areas where we can cut back in expenditures. Okay. Just quickly to go on, another point to make that I brought up in here, one minor one that I put in here is the booking fees. We have received the booking fees for this year, but I believe it's pretty much a conclusion that those will not be there next year. It's always possible something changes, but as for right now, I wouldn't count on those. Those are a very small amount. Those are only $11,650 a year, so that's not a major one that's going to have a huge impact. But if there are a number of those small items like that, they continually add up and eventually become a big impact.
Thank you for saying that, because
Yes.
those were my thoughts.
Right. The last thing, and I need to caution that, and I don't have a chart for this, but this is on our redevelopment agency. And these numbers are very preliminary. If you try to take these tax increment estimate and match it up to what is in our budget, it's close, but I didn't pull actual numbers out. So this is just based on, to get some round numbers to give you an idea of what we're talking about. And this is one that probably concerns me as much or more than the VLF funds. Now let me explain. I've explained it a little bit to you in this report. We receive in tax increment about $500,000 a year. We are already have a pass-through amount of about $100,000 a year. That means that those dollars that normally go to other agencies such as schools, counties, special districts, when we started the RDA over a certain period, those property tax increment slowly goes back to those agencies. And currently we're at about $100,000 that we're giving back to those agencies. So immediately that $500,000 is cut down. And then also out of every dollar of tax increment that we get, we have to take 20% out for housing set aside. So there's another $80,000, okay? So immediately you can see amount of available increment is approximately $320,000. I've then placed on here the state estimate, one of the proposals that is out there, and this one is not in concrete, it's not in writing yet. I don't believe it is even in the governor's proposal, but it is a proposal that is strongly out there and being circulated. is to take immediately the amount of tax increment that is going to redevelopment agencies and shift that back to schools. Okay, so rather than waiting the 30 years for the redevelopment agency plan to play through, that would go immediately. The estimate, and this is only an average estimate that was provided by California Redevelopment Association, is that that may be approximately 52% of our tax increment, and they termed it as gross tax increment, so it's probably a higher amount. I took it actually a net after I'd taken out housing set aside. An article I read just yesterday said that it is actually off the gross amount. But if you look at it this way, take that amount off, if you use that 52%, it actually takes out another $166,000 out of our tax increment money that we have available for all of our programs, including paying off the debt service on our current bond that we have for our redevelopment agency, leaving us an amount of $153,600. Currently, our principal and interest payment on our bond for this year is $241,000. So as you can see, that leaves a negative balance of $87,400. My initial response in looking at this, and everyone's was, well, legally they can't do that because those funds are obligated to those bonds. They can't do that. The response that we are getting back from those who are presenting this proposal is that if you can't meet your obligation out of your RDA tax increment because of this shift, then you will take it out of your general fund. You will be responsible for making it up out of other areas. So on top of what has been proposed from VLF, you could be looking at an additional $87,000. And again, these numbers are very draft numbers, very much rounded, but I wanted to give you some idea. I'd like to think this is worst case scenario. And then the impact that this has on the city is not just that, because of the other services that come out of this tax increment. For example, we budget, I think, about $50,000 a year for our facade improvement program downtown out of tax increment. Is that the dollar amount, Margaret? In addition, we have our small business loan program that also comes out of tax increment.
That came from the, well,
That,
it's out of the bond fund, but all
Okay.
this will be mingled up and
okay. So anyway, and then the other factors are, there is a portion of the city manager's office salary that comes out of redevelopment for the time that I spent as the agency director, and also because of the time that our community development director spends in the area of redevelopment, there's a portion of that would come out of there. Well, if those increments that tax increment funding is not available to pay for those then are going to get shifted back again to the general fund. So another hit on the general fund. So we're talking about how this will hurt RDA, and it truly will, because of we will not be able to do the things we need to do with RDA in order to attract new business and increase jobs, which is the goal of what we're trying to do with our RDA money. But it also, in turn, will have a heavy hit on our general fund if this were to go through completely. So that's the basic information that I wanted to present to the council tonight. I tried to give you as much detail as I could to back up this information. If there's any questions or any information you'd like to give me, the main item that is on your, or action that's on your agenda tonight, is to simply adopt this resolution urging the governor to, or urging the legislature to reject the governor's proposal. And as you know, there is a bill that I mentioned here, AB 4X by Wesson, which would basically make it possible for the backfill to be restored. Now I have to be upfront that is not a popular thing, because basically what that's saying is where they gave us a tax decrease, if you want to say it that way, for vehicle license fees back in 1998. That is now will go back into place, and we would again pay those fees. But it is a severe hit to the state. Would be a severe hit to us as cities, and just this VLF alone is not going to do anywhere near what the state needs to do to make up for the deficit that they currently have. But I'm not trying to I guess I am trying to paint a grim picture for you, because that's truly what it is. If these truly came into being, as you can see from this chart alone, no department in the city would be unaffected by these cuts if they took place.
Like
With
you
that,
say,
I'll
we have to
leave
be prepared for worst-case scenarios. We'll have to sharpen our pencils by hand, no electric sharpener.
I think what's most significant out of this particular report, I attended a meeting down in Southern California on the city's behalf. I serve on the Public Safety Committee out of the League of California Cities, and that's where this particular resolution is coming from. We, as a standalone city, don't speak as loud as the 470-odd number of cities within the state when it comes to our funding from the state. A lot of the money that is allocated to us, it goes up to the state and then it comes back and it's disseminated down. It's broken into segments to the cities. And one of the reasons why I posed a question about the $444,000 in the financial audit report is those are obligated funds that the state must pay, just like these are obligated funds. But what they're starting to tell us is, yeah, all those obligated funds that we say that we were going to pay you, we're not going to pay you now. So it makes it significant because it brings that total of what he's been speaking of to $882,000. This city just can't afford to absorb something like that. So we give the worst case scenario in the instance that the state just says, well, we're not paying you. But we as a group, all the cities within the state of California, make a significant statement to say, hey, we're in dire straits. We have to come up with those funds somehow. I just wanted to explain the VLF funding in kind of layman terms a little bit. When you get your DMV registration, licensing bill, there's a portion on there that says VLF and has a minus amount. That is what they're talking about that's going to be reinstated. So in other words, you're paying maybe, I don't know, $62, but there's a minus amount on there that might state $108. Well, that's going to be reinstated, so you'll have the 62 plus the 108. That is our source of funding, and we're asking for that to go back for people to pay. Not to hammer the idea, it's just that it's just that significant that we have to be faced with paying close attention to it, because as you can see here on this chart, it's clearly outlined all the departments that will be subject to if this funding doesn't come through for us, and in particular our police department, which accounts for nearly half. And I just think it's important and prudent from a city leadership point to make sure we get that information out there to the public. Thank you, Cleve.
Any other comments?
I don't have anything else.
No, good report, Cleve. Kind of gloomy, but at least it gives us an idea where we're at, and so it's always good to know. I hope that all these things don't occur like you're saying they will, because it can do a lot of damage to our city, not our city, but all the other cities in the state of California. So I know the League of Cities are out there trying to do their thing, and of course, hopefully with the number of people that are out there talking it up, maybe the governor will come to his senses and realize that cities can't function without those funds. That's all I have.
Direction? Motion?
I so move that we adopt resolution number 2003, next number, urging the California legislature to reject the governor's proposed shift of local VLF revenue and to honor the 1998 commitment to restore the VLF.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 10, we'll adjourn to meet as Newman Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, please.
Board Member Parker.
Present.
Marquez.
Present.
Martinez.
Present.
Chairperson Fantasia.
Present. Item 10B, adopt resolution number 2003-1, a resolution receiving and accepting a Newman Redevelopment Agency audit for the fiscal year ending June 2003-2002. June 30th, 2002, and accepting the annual state controls report. And C, adopt resolution number 2003, a resolution receiving and accepting the City of Newman's general financial statement and audit for the fiscal year June 30th, 2002.
Mr. Mayor, point of order and clarification, these are two separate motions. We're looking at these as two separate motions, not as combined, correct?
Yeah, he's just reading the agenda.
You're just reading it.
I was just making certain. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. The item before you is annual report that, one, the audit is done by an outside auditor. It is done at the same time in conjunction with a general purpose audit, but this particular one focuses on the financial activity of the redevelopment agency only. This particular audit is submitted to the state of California at the same time that the state controller's report is submitted. The purpose of that report is to advise the state of California, all the cities, counties, and special districts on their activities for the redevelopment agency's financial transactions. Based on these reports is where the state gets their information in order to make judgments of how much money they can take away from us. If we didn't send them this, they wouldn't know, but then they would fine us $5,000 a day. We also submit the general cities state controller's report, but we only received the forms this week. That is traditionally due at the end of September, but they were having difficulties putting the proper documents and data medium together. So that is not completed, and council will not receive that for another month or so. Primarily, everything's as it should be as of June 30th, 2002.
Questions for Margaret? Direction? Vote on it separate.
I move that we adopt the resolution 2003-1, a resolution receiving and accepting the Newman Redevelopment Agency audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2002, and accepting the annual state controller's report.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Item 10C, which is adopt resolution number 2003, a resolution receiving and accepting the City of Newman's.
No, Mayor, actually, it's the next one. It'd be item D from the front page.
You're right. My apology.
Okay.
Adopt resolution authorizing the approval of statement of investment policy for the City of Newman.
Okay. This item is identical to the item that was in the consent calendar. We are required by law to establish an investment policy. They are also requests, since we have bonding, that the investment policy has City of Newman and a separate one that says Newman Redevelopment Agency. This policy guides us on how we invest our idle cash, and our format, our rules and regulations follows a prudent man rule that says you wouldn't spend your money, any public funds, any more frugally than you would spend your own. Currently, cash-wise, for overall in the city, we have $6.9 million. The redevelopment agency has $2.6 million, and most of that is a result of the bond that we obtained a few years ago, which initially was $3.5 million in cash, which we received in '98, and a lot of that has been spent primarily on the streetscape. Plus, the 20% set aside for the bond has been used to fund the senior project.
Questions for Margaret?
I was just wanted to make a comment. This town has generally historically been fiscally conservative. I think we benefited from that, particularly in terms of what we do with these cash reserves. Normally, the LAIF fund, we receive roughly between 3 to 7% return on that
Now
money.
it's been down like to 2.9, but it used to be 7 when I first started investing, 7 to 8%.
Which you would think of as a very low number, but if we had that money invested otherwise, for instance, maybe in a more volatile stock market, that could be a heavily negative number. So
Absolutely.
in that sense, I'd like to commend our fiscal conservation of keeping the principle going and adding some monies to it.
Do we have some direction?
Certainly, I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the approval of the statement of investment policy for the redevelopment agency.
We have a second.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. We will reconvene to regular session. Item 12, items from the city manager.
I'm just going to touch briefly on some items quickly here. First, the streetscape, the repairs are underway to the concrete. I have not had an opportunity to meet. I've been trying to get the foreman up here to meet on the remaining issues, and he was supposed to be here yesterday. He was supposed to be here today. He now tells me he will definitely be here tomorrow, and I will meet with him, and I will give you an update on that once I have it where we're going on that. But the repairs that they had agreed to are underway, and should most of the concrete repairs, I'm guessing, will be completed possibly this week. They'll move rather quickly on those.
Could we expect to get an update before our next meeting, possibly via email?
Sure. Yeah, that's what I was intending to do, sure. Second item, and I know the mayor was going to comment on this, the cable TV contract is moving along. We had a good meeting today with representatives from, not AT&T, but Comcast now, their new name. And we felt it went very well. They seem to be a new company that is going to do good things for us. It will remain to be seen in what actually happens. But we were comfortable with the meeting that went on today, and we'll. I know that I had promised a response to those who attended the public meeting we had here. They did not provide me a written response today, but I will put one together based on their verbal responses and report back to the city council at our next meeting based on the issues that were presented at that public meeting, so that those can be presented to the council. Those who want to watch this over TV can get it, and anyone else that would like to know what those answers were, they can get a copy of that. Next thing, there have been some questions that have arose regarding the senior center and what is happening with the senior center. I am working on, as I think many of you may know, I'm working on putting together an agreement for lease of the property to the school district. That's the property over next to the Westside Village Apartments that the city owns, and the plan has been that that's the location where this building will be built. And because the funding that is available for that is school funding, it's my understanding that they have to have control of the property. What has been discussed in the past is some sort of 99-year lease, $1 a year type thing that we would allow them to put that in turn. But we get use of the building for a senior center. They use it for a senior education center. We have a dual use of the building. I will be meeting with 2 architects with the superintendent, one on the 3rd of February and one on the 19th of February, to get some ideas of things that they've done in the past that might fit this, possibly other senior centers they've done that we can bring in and start the discussion on designing that facility. And then the last thing I had was just a reminder to the council members. Hopefully you're planning on attending our employee dinner tomorrow night at the Louis J. Newman Memorial Building. Unless there are any other questions, that's all I have.
Item from city council members. Tim, we'll start with you this evening.
I don't have anything to see.
Charles?
I don't have anything either.
Bob?
I don't have anything tonight.
I'm just going to comment a little bit real fast on what Cleve said about our meeting today with 2 representatives from Comcast. As Cleve said, we were really come out of the meeting really happy. I think they're willing to negotiate with us without lawyers. And we're meeting... Sorry, Tom, we're leaving you out. Without their lawyers, how's that? We're meeting Thursday night with representatives from Patterson, which we have been all along, to let them know what happened at the meeting, and so we all have the same interests. And what they're talking about is they're going to redo our whole system, update. You know, we have parts of town that are old and the cables are old and stuff. Worst case scenario is what they told us today is the end of 2004. Everything should be replaced by then. So that's the worst case. If it could come a little sooner, so we're we're meeting with them and things are going, and hopefully next couple of weeks we'll have our franchise agreement done and everybody will be happy. That's all I had. If nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.
What did you say about our lawyer?
I said they showed up with no lawyer.